Well, good evening and welcome everybody to the Full Sail University online classes. My name is Steve Kane, and once again, I'm here with the Audio Workstations class. We got a week 4 Tuesday lecture. It is Tuesday, June 19th, and oh my dog, it is hot outside. We've been sweating bullets. Hope everybody had a fabulous Father's Day weekend and you were able to get some good stuff and good time spent with your loved ones. And as always with Tuesday, you know what that means? We're going to go over our remix project, and tonight we are going to be mixing. As they say in Nashville, they just leave off the G there. Everybody else says mixing. I want to give a shout out to our grad, Leslie Brathwaite, for having some of the mixing credits on that new Jay-Z and Beyonce drop. That was pretty cool. So congrats to you, my friend. I want to welcome, we've got Brantley, Duke, Gabriel, James, John, Jingleheimer, Schmidt, Ray, Richard, Sergio, Shantae, Summer, and Willie all up in the house tonight. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here, and as always, it allows you to ask those questions. Now remember, I want to just refresh everybody's memory of our expectations, right? I'm not expecting you to follow me along as you go. I just want you to watch me and make sure that everything that I do is making sense. And then as we pause for questions, go ahead and type the questions out before you forget them. And that way when we pause for questions, you can just hit return and it populates. And if you're watching the archives, the second time that you're going through it or so, if you're not getting it, we fully expect you to reach out and make sure that you're getting the help that you need from your instructor. So with that being said, hey Tyrone, what's up, man? He's like walking in saying, hey everybody. So I didn't want to leave you out. So under our course resources, that's where you find your remix project guidelines that we've been working on all month. So I popped that PDF open, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So remember, in week 1, we imported all of our tracks. We tempo mapped it up, made some markers to make our life a little bit easier getting around the song. And maybe started cutting and copying and rearranging the song a little bit. In 2, we started laying down our rhythm tracks and got at least 6 tracks out there. Now, the point I want to reinforce with everybody is that we are only using the plugins that we gave you for this class, and that all of the MIDI tracks that you are using remain in the session. All right? Now, we've asked you to make sure that you print a few of the tracks as audio, but as I have suggested, it's probably going to be easier on your computer if you commit them as you are going. So, and then the last week we laid down some bed tracks and tried to make some cool little music decisions along the way. And tonight we're going to get into some mixing and get into some routing of our effects and such, get into some automation and groups and subgroups and things like that. So, and then instead of Thursday being another Pro Tools assignment, what we're going to do this Thursday is we're going to show you how we expect you to deliver this and go over all of our preparation and delivery for everything. So, with that being said, let's jump in to do some mixing. So, as we said, the original vocals that you downloaded, you know, they're going to be in there in some form or fashion. Maybe you've copied them up. Maybe you've done some stutter stuff where it's or whatever, you know. No, I'm not going to do that again. Excuse me. But now, if you want to put some background vocals in here, we're not requiring this, But if you want to just have some fun and you like singing along, go ahead, sing it. Make maybe a call and response, sing in harmony, whatever you want to do. You can have fun with it, but just letting you know that that's not required. And you're probably not going to hear. Actually, you know what? Maybe we will do a little bit of background vocals, but I really would rather spend our time tonight doing routing some delays and reverb, showing you how I go about mixing and how Pro Tools goes about mixing, and use some groups and subgroups to our advantage here. So make sure we lay down some automation. So let's just jump on it. Now, with that being said, any questions before we start? Or is everybody all good? You can give me an AG for all good if you are all good at this point, or you can start typing out a question and let me know. All right, I'm getting a lot of all goods. Thank you, John. Thank you, Summer, Richard, Tyrone, Sergio. Thank you, Sergio. All right. So, all month long we've been working in this edit window. And you can mix in the edit window, but as you look at all tracks and stuff, you might find that it's going to be maybe easier to mix in La Mix Window, which is just French for the mix window. Now, what we can see is you've got two ways to do it. You've got this little drop-down menu here, and this shows you everything that you need. Well, now we're not going to need our instrument tracks or columns because we're not worried about routing MIDI. We are going to want some inserts and sends. Now, I'm going to worry about F through J later on. And so notice that I've got 10 inserts and 10 sends, and they break them down into buckets of 5, right? I do need my meters and faders, and I do need my IOs for routing. And I'd just like to have my track color there just to help me stay organized. So, with that being said, let's get it ready to rock and roll. So, there's two styles of mixing, right? People a lot of times will try to recreate the mix that somebody gave them, because generally speaking, people try to mix as they go, so they're always hearing somewhat of the final product, and then when they hand it to the mixing engineer, it's more of like a polish and wax job, Some people pull all the faders down and they say, you know what, I'm going to mix what I hear and what we think, and maybe that's why the producer hired them, so they have no preconceived notions of how loud or what should take the lead and everything. So some people mix by suggestion, and some people mix without suggestion and starting from the faders down. And so I'm going to take the faders down approach tonight, since for the most part everything that we've been doing I've bounced down as MIDI tracks and made them audio tracks. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to first pull everything down, and then I'm going to pull my microphone back up. So I'm going to engage the all group and just pull everything down. And then by option clicking, I was able to send those back right away. The other thing that I've done is I've solo safed a couple things already. This submaster, if I solo anything, see how right now when I solo my dry vocals, it gets muted, but my submaster gets muted. But because I've solo safed my live mic, it's not getting muted. So because eventually I'm going to have everybody making a submaster and routing to that submaster, I'm going to go ahead and solo safe that. Okay, so I'm going to command click on the solo, and now you can see that it is not getting muted. Now, I want to make out a point here before we get rolling, because I told you all month long that you didn't need that submaster, and it was something that I was making. And tonight, I'm going to tell you that we want you to start making that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, with everything down, so as I go to the verse, we'll hear nothing, right, even though it's playing, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start with a technique that I like. I've learned this. Let me just kind of hit pause for a minute. When you hear things on the radio versus when you hear things on their CD or DVD, the way that you can hear the compression is, or the way that you can tell that it's been very compressed, is on the radio. With the volume very, very low, you can still hear all the instruments because they are compressed so closely together dynamically. However, on a DVD or a CD, they're not as compressed, and so at a very low volume, you might only hear one or two of the instruments. And then as you turn it up, you hear more and more instruments come out. And that's one way that you can tell sonically if something has been compressed. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Give me MS for makes sense, or an MNS for makes no sense. All right. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Summer, James, Duke, Richard, John, Ray, Tyrone, all in the house. Thank you. Whoop, whoop. So, speaking about musicians, did you hear about the little boy that said, hey, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a musician? And she says, well, honey, you can't do both. Oh, I love me some musician jokes. All right. So here's what I'm going to do then. With that technique of thinking about what's uncompressed, right, like the CD, I'm thinking if I had the volume low, what would be the first couple of things that I'm hearing? And for me, I'm thinking I probably want to hear the beat and the vocal. So that's what I'm going to start mixing with tonight. So I'm going to go to my drum track. All right, so we're going to call up our drums. And the first thing I'm going to do is see how everything is wide stereo panned. I do not want that. If we have everything wide panned, it is just going to sound, it's going to sound like ultra mono, if you will, if everything's sitting here on the outside. So I'm going to quickly pan these. And actually, I'm going to put these in an order that make more sense for me, where I'd prefer to see them on a console. I'd rather see kick, snare, and then hat and open hat. And then I'd be fine with, we got two kicks here. And then tambourine, shaker, and loops. All right. So as I start this, I'm going to go to my verse and start hitting play. Now, I'm going to tell you this. One of the common mistakes that engineers make early in mixing is that they put the fader up too high, and then their master fader starts tweaking out and clipping before they actually start getting many faders up. So I'm going to tell you to start between the negative 10 and negative 15 range, and if you're not happy with how loud it is, turn up your headphones. All right? So now, I'm one of those guys, too, that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start EQing this thing, right? Now, again, I'm not really going to tell you how to mix. I'm just going to kind of show you some things that I would do, and because mixing is subjective. But one of the things I would do when I'm mixing is I would first probably cut out the things that I'm not even hearing. So I'm going to cut out all the high end until I hear it make a difference. And that way it leaves that for other instruments to use. And then I'm going to go find some other things I like. Really loudly. Then I'm going to mix it down to a usable level. Maybe get some beater on it. And then I'm going to find something I don't like. Now, on this one, I'm going to make this cue very, very narrow so I can pull out stuff I don't like. Now, if you notice right now, I'm having to start over. And so what I want to do is set up a loop, I think, between the verse and the turnaround. So I'm going to hold down Shift, right? And then I'm just going to make sure I'm in loop playback so it won't stop. And I'm going to find something I don't like. There it is. I'm going to pull it out. All right, cool. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I don't want my EQ, when I go bypassing it, you'll definitely hear a change. I'll jump back here in just a second. Maybe I shouldn't have looped that far. Let's just go verse to chorus. I don't want your ear tricking you that louder is better. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull down the output until my input and output are the same, because I don't want to eat up my dynamic or all of my loudness with effects. So I want to and then I can bypass it and I'll hear an EQ. All right, and then you can save that. Awesome. And then now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to pan these out before I get too far in level. I'm going to pan these out kind of like, I like drummer's perspective. So I'm going to put the kick maybe just a little bit off center to the right. And then maybe the other kick just a little bit off center to the left. And then the snare just a little bit further off to the left. Now, even though these are stereo, notice how I'm panning the left and right together, and that way it's treating it more of a monophonic instrument. The hat's going to be sitting over there by the snare in most cases. The overhead, the open hat is going to be right where that other hat is, unless you're going to be doing something funky. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll balance out that high end with the tambourine with the high end of the hi-hats, and likewise with the shaker and the snare kind of. Or maybe the shaker is more of hi-hat style, more steady, and the tambourine is more syncopated like the snare. And then maybe I'll leave the loop there. All right, so now let's... we got that going on. Now let's bring in kick 2. Now check this out. I can hold down Option and just drag the EQ over there, and then it starts, and then I just kind of find small differences. Check out my meters. All right. So any questions about how I'm going to do that, or just my basic technique? My personal thing, I like to first pull out the high end of the kicks, because that way I can save that frequency information for other instruments. I find a couple of things I like. My technique is to make them really loud and then to bring them back down to a usable level. Find something I don't like, pull that out. And you can do some really neat things. All right, now, so let's bring in the snare. All right, so before I get too crazy here then, I had a question if it's okay to clip while I'm EQing. It's not my preferred thing, and if I did... Yep, I see my clip lights. Let's see if that is happening again since I mashed it. And it could, the input was clipping as well. So I could bring down that input just a hair and see if it does that anymore. Now, before I start going crazy here, I probably want to start hearing some verb. All right? So let's go ahead and what kind of tracks am I going to use for my reverb return? Actually, first question. Yes, all right, so aux tracks, sorry, I already asked that. But aux tracks, yes, we're going to use that. But so what kind of effects are we going to consider this reverb? Time-based or dynamic? You can say TB or D. So is reverb going to be time-based or dynamic? Very good, time-based, very good. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Love the feedback, you guys. Thank you so much. All right, so check this out. Let's go ahead, and our rule is create a lot more than we think we're going to need. So let's go ahead and create like 15 stereo aux tracks. And if we have time, we're going to be doing some neat things. So let's get 5 stereo master faders as well. All right. Now, they're going to just insert them in wherever the track is highlighted. So if you want to pull them down to the bottom, you can, whatever. But I'm going to rearrange these as I use them. And I'm only going to bring them up as I need them. So I'm going to take this aux 1, and I'm going to go all the way down here. And we're going to make this called the drum verb. I'm going to put an insert on it. Since I'm using on A, I've got my reverbs. On A, I've got EQ, so I'm going to put reverbs on B here. So I'll go ahead and do reverb. Or was I putting those on C? I think I had put those on C earlier. So I think I'm going to keep going on that delay, or on that train, and put my reverb, if I can actually dial it in here. And let's go find a drum room or something like that. All right, so my rule of thumb is I'm going to leave this wide panned because of that way, check it out. When I send my snare over there, let's put the snare over there first. And so since my verb is on C, I'm going to send on C as well. So I'm going to go down to track, and now that I've got drum verb, I go there. What I'm going to do is check this out so I don't have to repan it. I'm going to tell it to follow the main pan. And see, now it catches the way I've originally panned it. And then it'll come out that same way on the verb track. So let's see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Option, go ahead and set that over to my kick as well. Oh, sorry. I should have looked. See, I was manipulating my snare. I was like, how come I'm not hearing it? All right, so now what I'm going to do is go back over to my kick track. All right, so now I just used 2 different sends because I want my drummer to be in the same room, and that's the reason I left my drum verb at Unity, so I could mix different amounts by the sends because I wanted to share that verb. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, thank you, Serge. Thank you, Brantley. Thank you, Duke. John. Thank you, Jane. Summer. Woo, woo. All right. So now I'm going to quickly get the other ones up here, and just to get a quick mix going. Okay, so I'm gonna hit Command S, save, right? So let's pause for a second and talk. So let's pretend that now I've spent hours, soloing and unsoloing, because as I would EQ, I'm gonna solo, right? And as I do that kind of stuff, maybe I want to pop an EQ on my snare. See if there's any presets already. Oh look, they got toms. Oh, there they are. Like that have, all right. Yeah, like that. All right, so LL Cool J is here to play. All right, so now check this out. We've got here, 6 tracks of drums, 7 tracks of drums, and then a verb track. And then, you may even want to put a delay or something on it as well, and just get you another aux track and have that. That's pretty common. Let's do that real quick. And I'll get another aux there. We'll name that delay. And then maybe we'll have it do, since I've got verbs on that, we'll put these on D. And I'm just going to go something with like a quick slap back. So like an 8th note and a 16th note. All right, now that our tempo match. Right, and then maybe we'll just put it on the snare, or actually the tambourine, I think. So let's send that. Since I'm trying to keep everything steady. So since I've got a delay on D, I'm going to send on D, and we'll go to track and not drum verb. Sorry, delay. And you know what? If I wanted to, I should have named this drum delay, because I might put some vocal delay as well. But let's see what putting a little delay on that with the will sound like. Let's follow main pan. Now the other thing that I want to note is that I'm leaving these post fader instead of turning them pre-fader. And that way, as I pull down the dry track, it also pulls down the effect. Notice that? See that? Now, Here's the one thing I need to apologize to my live class. So for the live class, this broadcast in mono, so you're not hearing some of this cool delayed stuff like that was just bouncing back and forth in my ears. But when you listen to the YouTube archive, that does play back in stereo, and you're going to hear this a whole lot differently. Okay, so I had a question. It says, why do I even need a submaster? Let's back up. Do the kicks need to end up in an aux to blend them before the submaster, or is that not really necessary? And then somebody said, is a submaster really necessary? So here's where we jump in and we start answering those things. Now, I'm going to tell the story first about when I had our grad come back in 2014 and ask for help setting up for the Dream Theater tour. And they had 198 tracks, right? So the first 12 were kick and snare. So what happens in the live venue is people create a mix and then they bust them all into a submaster section, and so they have just drums. And then, because you can imagine now, if I wanted to, even just with our 7, 8, 9 tracks, if I wanted to turn them all up or all down, I could use my group, right? I could turn my group on, and now that works, but now I've got to include everybody else in my group and add more people to my group, right? Because I created my group a long time ago. But even back then, I told you that I prefer groups for more editing purposes and such, but when I mix, I prefer subgroups. So check it out. I'm going to use the aux track in yet another way, and this time I'm going to call it drum sub. And because my, let's see, I'm going to make all of my master and submasters and stuff, let's do those more of a purple so I can leave my effects green. So we'll make the master bright purple, and then the submaster and the drum sub, so I'm going to hold down command, we'll make those the little darker purples. All right? Not deep purple, but just dark purple. All right, so now what I'm going to do, follow me here. Everybody is going to, from my drums, my tambourines, my snares, my verbs, and the delays, all of my drum tracks, I'm going to hold down shift and click together. And now I'm going to hold down what 2 keys to do this at the same time. So check it out. I'm going to hold down 2 keys, and then I'm going to go to track, and I'm going to send them all to my drum subtrack. What 2 keys did I hold down to everybody go at once? And see how it aligned drum sub, and then it turned my drum sub here. So now when I play, shift and option is exactly correct. Thank you, Duke. Thank you, John and Summer. All right. So now we're here. And I try to leave my subs at unity as well. All right. So now what we have then is I need my drum sub to not feed the main outputs, but I need that to feed my sub master. Because I want now a drum sub to go over here. Now check it out. So now when I pull it down, and then my submaster. So if we want, let's take these 2 and let's put them all the way down here, so it's easier to follow the signal flow. So all of my drums and the effects go to my drum sub. The output goes to my drum sub for my input. Then my drum sub track goes to my sub master track, and my sub master track goes out my main outputs, and then my main outputs are governed by my master fader. Now, a couple differences. Somebody said, why do I need a submaster? So does that make sense now? So I can turn down all my drums at once. So I'm going to start doing this a couple times. Matter of fact, so let's go quickly do this with the vocals. So I'll start mixing vocals. Maybe a little compression, just a little bit. You see how it just pulls it down just a little bit. Just kind of level it out. Now you were going to hear that more if we were actually compressing it more. You would hear more of that kind of stuff. I don't want to use the that, so I just going to use the EQ and the compressor with that one, just to show you a different type of EQ and compressor there. So now I probably want them to also go to a verb. So let's get another aux. And this is going to be the Vox verb. And let's go ahead and, while we're playing, let's go ahead and get a Vox delay as well. All right. So on the inserts on C is where I've been putting verbs. So we'll put a we'll see what kind of vocal plate or something like that. See what we can find here. You know what? Let's go with something. Let's go with something else. It's a little spring verb here. There we go. A little slap back verb. And let's see. So that's our sound here. I'm leaving that at 100%. And now I'm just going to send it over on the dries on C as well, since our verb is on C. So I'm just going to go down here and send that to my vocal verb. I want to follow the man. Come on. It's being slow when I clicked it twice. There we go. All right. So then maybe we'll have like a delay for effect, like a bigger effect here. And we'll do something like eighth notes. And quarter notes. Or you know what? Let's do dotted eighth notes. All right, and we'll use that for a little bit of a crazier track. Now, check this out. On this one though, because I'm wanting it to be more of an effect, here's what I'm going to do. And remember, as we look down on our rubric, right? Automation is used in volume, pan, and a plugin of choice, right? We've done some instrument plugins, but here's how I would do automation for this delay here. So I would probably go over to my mix window, or sorry, to my edit window. And now that I've got that up there, I can go look at let's put it up here. I want to send this out to the Vox delay. And so now what I can do is I can go look at the Vox delay level, right? And so I only want to automate a couple of words. First, I want to get an idea here.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ
All right, so let's mess around with that word right here. And so now let's get an idea of how we want to take it. All right, let's make that higher. So check it out. Now I can take my trim tool and just trim these two up. Boom. A little too much. All right, so let's see what we've got going on now.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ
All right, so now what I'm going to do is check this out. I'm going to take, since I wrote that in verse 1 and didn't even realize it, I'm going to copy verse 1 right here. Now, since everybody's already there, I just got to select this one, right? Between verse 1 and verse 2, and I'm going to hit copy. And because my keyboard focus is on, I can just hit C. Then I'm going to go to verse 2, and I'm going to hit V. And let's see if it did the same thing now. And so then maybe I even want to take this right here. Copy that. And where do they say it again? All right, so you get the idea. Cool? All right, so let's see. I think I understand. I think I get it when you do that, but thank you, sir. All right. Shift Command N menu was to make new tracks. Yes. All right, so let's go. All right. It's simple to add a submaster, master. Yes, I wasn't really sure how to get it in my mix, but all the other tracks are just no submaster, master at least just yet. All right, so all I've done to make a submaster is I added an aux track, right? And so check this out. Let's pause and learn for just a second. So let's look at aux tracks. They've got the down arrow. So it's used for effects. It's used for your click. We've used it to for MIDI returning. We've now used it for more time-based, and now we've used it for some subgroups, right? And we've now used it as a submaster. And the reason that this we can have one type of track do so many different functions is simply based on how we route it. It's kind of like, let's see, a knife. You can use a knife for many different things depending on how you use it, right? You can slice, and if you needed a flat-headed screwdriver, you could take it and use it, as a screwdriver as a last resort. I'm not going to mention some of the comments being made. Crazy. I'm not even going to go there. Y'all knock that nonsense off. Silliness. So I should have used a better example. See, growing up in the country, everybody carried a pocket knife. And when you didn't, they would take it. They would clean their nails with their darn pocket knife. They would screw in a little flat-headed screw if they needed, like on a light box or whatever. So depending on how you use it. So aux tracks are the same way. So let's look at this now. We're going to do the same thing that we did just a minute ago. So now I'm going to take all of my vocals, including my effects, and now I want to send them to a vocal subgroup, right? So I'm going to add yet another aux track, and I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to color it dark purple again. We'll call it Vox Sub. And let's color it dark purple again so we know it's what we're doing. So we're going to go and take all of our things that make up our vocals. I'm going to hold down Shift and Option, and we're going to send that to the track called Vox Sub. Right? Now we're going to take my Vox Sub and send it to my Sub Master.
पीछे आना मेरी चाल वेना पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वेना मेरा लौंग वाचा
So is everybody understanding that signal flow now? So changing the color, I just double click down here in the little colored section and the color box pops up. Now you've got to make sure that you are viewing the colors. The grandma way is view. You got your edit window views, colors, track color. Okay. And your mix window views, track color. All right. Let's see. Any questions real quick? Let's see. Somebody says, wow, that's helpful. Serge says, wow, that's helpful. I think I was talking about the subgroups then, or was that about the automation? So either way you want to do it. Good. All right, so now then, check this out. So let's grab the bed tracks real quick. And obviously, all right, I'm just trying to get a nice, what I call static mix going on. So let's call up bed tracks. Let's see. Oh, by the way, since you didn't have any questions for me, I've got one for you. Do you know what you call Bach? Dead. Anti-joke. Oh my gosh. Yeah, ever since he stopped composing and started decomposing, it's been downhill all since then. Alrighty. Let's get these bed tracks going on.
पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वेना पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वेना चीरे वाले आवे कदाई बे मेरा लौंग वाचा मेरा लौंग वाचा मेरा लौंग वाचा मेरा लौंग वाचा
All right. So I'm probably gonna let me just hit pause for a second. I'm probably gonna take the bass and put that right up in the center. Pretty omnidirectional there. The organ, I think I'm gonna make that a nice little stereo mix, kind of like, but still leaned over towards my left side, and then my piano maybe a nice stereo mix, but leaned over towards my right side. Come on. And I forgot what this. Why? Oh, do we have two pianos? All right, am I missing my lead though? Like it seems like I'm missing a track. Sitar, there you are. And I guess we didn't make that audio yet. All right, so I've got them panned where I want to. Now let me just, we doubled up our piano. All right, let's go shift so we can get that loop going on there. All right, so let's take these three, move them down here, sit down here. All right, so let's first color it. Let's name it. This will be our bed subs. And so now I want all of my bed instruments. And if you had verbs and delays or whatever you want to do, you'd include those. Hold down Shift and Option. Shift and Option. And now we've got our bed subs. Where'd we put our bed subs? Where'd they go? Where'd they go? Where'd they go? Down here. There we go. Bed subs. So now that goes to bed subs. By bed subs, then goes to my submaster. Submaster goes there. Now one thing I got to do is I want to correct that, and so my bed tracks look the same there. All right, so now, all right, so as we're doing this, I've got a good static mix going on. I've started now. I've got my minimum of 2 subgroups. I've got a drum subgroup now, and I've got a vocal subgroup, and everybody is going, that sounds great, but what I really want to hear is that delay. I said that delay. So, a static mix. Yes, so here's what I mean by a static mix. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over and I'm going to get all my tracks over in here. And this is just where the levels are where they sound good. Now I need to make it come alive, right? All right, so what I'm going to do is I've got to automate this vocal and make this vocal dance a bit, right? So I'll do this with the volume tool here. And so that's the other vocal. Sorry. That's the vocal that we did. So now let's go look at this volume. Here we go. All right, so like right there, I might want to take that. And here's where I'll go in slip mode. And I just want to kind of make that pop out a little bit. Oh, come on. No, undo that. Don't take the line tool. I'm not line tool, yo. This is where you need the freehand. So now we got just a little. That's a little high, right? So I can go through here. The easiest thing, I mean, if you don't want to redo it, you can take that trim tool and just bring everything down a hair. So I was coming down a little bit too far right there even. So I could go there. There you go. And then now, see, this is where you get the choice. You can use the trim tool, you can redraw it, you can do whatever you want. All right. So let's hit save. All right. Now it is becoming less of a static mix, meaning that the faders aren't just sitting there, right? So when you look at verse 2 and you're looking at this dry vocal, all right? So now you would start doing that to the different tracks, to bring the piano in and out, to bring your lead in and out, to bring, you know, all your different instruments. I don't want to see just a static mix and everything just staying the same and not changing. I want to see parts come in, get softer, get louder. And one of the things that might do is they might move side to side as well, right? So when it talks about automation for volume and panning, right? So maybe we'll make this singer, and this is the one that, like I said, is really tough to demonstrate on a place like tonight because of I thought I put my vocals up in the middle already. All right, so in something like this, because it's stereo, I've got to do both sides. So what I would first do is something like volume and pan automation, right? And that way we know that to look for both of them. So let's go look for panning automation. So see, I've got pan left and right. So if I go to verse 2 and they're in the center and I kind of want them to walk to the left side of the stage and then the right side of the stage and then back to the center, right? I would need to do that also to the right side and have them walk to the left, over to the right, and then back to the center. Now, again, you're not going to be able to hear this except when you play it back on YouTube on the archive. Now, realistically, I probably should have stretched it out twice as long because she would have had to run to get to that side of the stage and then run all the way back to get to that side of the stage. But, that's what we got to make those singers do. We got to work them out, right? We got to get them running across that stage. So, everybody cool so far? What questions do you have for me? We're going to start shifting gears a little bit now. Cool so far. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Tyrone. I'm going to leave that one for you. If somebody says, give me a bass drop, I'm going to let... Oh, yeah. The bass drops. Those are fun. All right, so what do we got going on here? So... Now, I've got some things that I need to add. I need to add my bed subs. I need to add my sitar. Let's see. We need to add the vocal sub, vocal delay, drum sub, all that. All right, and now I've got all my tracks. Right click. And now that is updated. All right, so check this out. Here's something else that we could probably do. Let's now hit Option. I said hit Option. Bring them all off. And let's get our master and our submaster and our bed subs and our vocal subs and our drum subs. 3 fingers down. And that should do it, yeah? So now let's make another one. So let's hit F and return. And we'll call these subs. 99 sub balloons living in my living room. 99. Come on. 99 sub balloons. Don't need none of that. Track shown high. All right. So now, when you're looking at your mixing window, you've got just your... And then this is where I start doing stuff like this. I watch my master fader now. All right, so let's hit save. Okay. Now we're starting to shift gears now. So I got a nice mix from my client. I tell him to come in. You've done all your automation, just like I showed you, like on vocals and subs. You got your subgroups on, everything. Everything's lovely, right? So you ask your client, are you going to go to a mastering engineer? And they say, as a matter of fact, I am. And you say, awesome. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call up the mastering engineer and see what they need. And so I'm going to save this as day 4 non-mastered. Okay? And because I'm going to the mastering engineer, I call them up and they say, all right, what do you need from me? And they said, you know what? Just give me a stereo wave file that peaks at -5 or whatever. So you play, and you watch your master fader, and you're right there at -4, and you see how the, see how that peaked out? And that's why I have a submaster. Alright, so I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to watch those peak lights again, because they told me he wants me peaking at -5. A little bit. Now I'm going to go back to that loudest part of the song and make sure that I don't have any of my peak lights louder than -5, since that's what the mastering engineer said they wanted. All right, so I'm going to hit save again. So I used my submaster to achieve the level that the mastering engineer wanted. Notice that my master is still at 0. All right, so I used my submaster now. I used my subgroups to make minor adjustments. Then I use my submaster to make the final adjustments of what I want to bounce to send to my mastering engineer. All right. Now, what I'm going to choose real quick is just this quick part between verse 2, and I'm going to hold down shift in chorus. I'm going to go just double check my work in the edit window, make sure there is a selection here. All right, and there is. So we're going to go bounce this real quick to disk, and I'm going to do it in real time. So I'm going to take this offline to show you that this can happen in real time, and we're going to name this, this was nuclear long washa. And then I'm going to put non-mastered -5. All right. I know where it's going to choose right in the bounce files. I want to leave that. And then I'm choosing offline so you can see that this happens in real time, even though I chose. All right, so it's going to be, I'll be back in a verse. So it says, do I want to import this? Yes. Let's just stick it in the clips list, though. So now I've got my non-mastered version. And when we look in the audio files folder, let's get our new Finder up. Hit Command N. Let's look in our documents. In my online courses in my 1806. And look at this. So we've got our, this going on, right? We've had our day 4, we're mixing, and now we've got our non-mastered version. So it sent one to the bounced files folder, but not to the audio files folder, all right? So that's cool. That's good, because that's where we want it to be, in that bounce files, and that's what we're going to send to that engineer. All right, so that is situation number 1. All right, now situation number 2 is this. They say, hey, homeboy Steve, what do you mean when you say mastered? Because, you know, you said, hey, would you like me to are you going to be sending this to a mastering engineer? And they said, well, what do you mean mastering engineer? And you say, oh my gosh. So check this out. There are these special engineers that take the final mix that I make for you, and they really polish it up. It's like taking your car after you've had it, just washed and detailed, and it's like taking it to somebody and having them clay bar it and wax it. It just makes it perfect. It takes a clean car and just makes it shine. And that's what the mastering engineer does. They take but special little nuances for each different medium. So they're going to tweak it one way for making records, and one way for making MP3s, and a different way for making CDs, and a different way for doing this, and a different way, so depending on what, for cassettes, right? So they make the mix shine for each different medium, because each different medium is different, right? Some has better high-end qualities, some have better low-end qualities and such, and you need to prepare for that. All right, so what we'll do is we'll do another save as, and the client said, no, I had never learned about that. And you say, all right, well, what I'm going to do for us just one more hour, I'm going to do a little bit of mastering. And it's not like what a mastering engineer. I'm going to save you hundreds of dollars, if not more than that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tweak it out for you for one more hour, and I'm going to master this thing. Now, all right, we're going to pause the lecture for a second, and I'm going to make a quick learning example right here, because a lot of people want to do this to the master fader, and it's not the place to do it on the master fader. We're going to do it on the submaster, and here's why. So a typical thing that a mastering engineer would be EQing and compression and things like that. So we'll go get that channel strip. You know what? I'm going to treat these differently. No, we're going to, instead of the channel strip, let's use a dedicated EQ. And so let's say we said we're going to tweak this out, and we're going to send it. This is for our LP copy, right? So in real time, just making small little differences, and then maybe I'm going to put a compressor in here. All right. Now on this one, I want you to check something out here. All right. So as this plays, you see, I get my gain reduction and I'm just doing a small little ratio here. But watch what happens when I pull down my compressor, when I pull down my fader. This is also going to stop compressing. You can watch the meter here. Sorry, reverse that. See how it didn't stop compressing even though I was pulling down the fader? That is because these inserts on the aux channels are pre-fader. You see how it's still compressing? And I want that because maybe I want the end of the song to fade out, right? And if that's what I was trying to achieve, look what happens if I put it on a master fader. The master fader is not pre-fader. These inserts are post-fader. So look what happens. Now as I start pulling the fader down, it's going to get less and less compressed. And that's what I don't want. Can you imagine as I'm pulling, I'm trying to do this fade out, all of a sudden it starts getting less and less compressed. Watch. And so now, so I got down to -20 and it had already quit compressing. You see that? And yet I was still hearing the song. So that's what I don't want, because check it out. Here, start, and look what happens. By the time I'm negative 20, I still get the same compression. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So, for a quick review, the inserts on every single track are pre-fader, meaning their signal will not change even when I pull this down, which is what we want, except for the master fader. The master fader has post-fader inserts, right? So that's why I put my mastering effects on my submaster and not my master. And then what I do is I'm going to try to get close to 0. And now I've got a nice mastered version, right? A little final EQ, final compression. I'm going to do a save, all right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go bounce again, and I'm going to show you something else here. So now when I bounce, I want to bounce the, we're going to call this mastered. And I got that to about, mastered that to about -2. All right, I'm going to leave this, but this time I'm going to do it offline. And I wanted to also point out that I had this checked import after bounce. That's why I got that message if I wanted to go to a clips list or a track. So I do have it import after bounce. So now, check it out. If I don't have anything selected, it's going to do the whole entire song in off time, offline, and be very quick. All right, so now you see that I've got a mastered version and a non-mastered version. Let's listen to the difference. I'm going to hold down Option. Can everybody hear the difference there? And it's just nice and polished. It's as, because what happens, you don't want somebody to get in their car and put your CD in or put their iTunes plug in and say, oh, it's too low, I gotta turn it up, right? You don't want that to happen to your product. You want people to put it in and say, oh, I gotta turn it down, it's too loud, right? Because they put their phone up nowadays, they've downloaded it, you know, and they plug in their aux cord or whatever, right? And so how disappointed are you when you download something and you got to turn it up and you turn it up and it's like, oh, and so my phone all the way up? Yeah, my phone's all the way up. Oh, man. Now you can tell that something was not mastered. And it says too loud, that bass, though. And that means it wasn't mastered correctly. Outkast had it right when they said, what'd they say in that... Elevators, make it sound like aluminum cans in a bag. Speaker box vibrate in the tag, make it sound like aluminum cans in a bag. That's what it is. Speaker box vibrate in the tag, make it sound like aluminum cans in a bag. All right. So, yeah, that just means that they're not, what do I know about that? Dude, I did their photo shoot. I know those mo guys. Yeah, Leslie mixed the album, and I was the assistant photographer for those source photographs when they were in the glass elevators and all that kudzu around them and stuff like that. Yep. So... pulling my, got people questioning my street credit, like, what you know about Outkast? I didn't know much about them until they hired us to do the photo shoot for the elevators release. for AT Aliens. So, and that's what job I'll hit pause. Stopped me waiting tables, and everything else was entertainment based after that. I quit TGI Fridays on Thursday. I was asked Thursday, they said, do you want to go out for a photo shoot in Atlanta? And I said, who we shooting? They said, Outcast. I said, who's that? And they said, somebody on LaFace's record label. And I said, cool. Will we meet LaFace? We meet Babyface? And because that's what I care about real quick. I didn't know Outcast at the time. And he says, I don't know. So I called up my my boss at TGI Fridays. I said, I'm not going to be here this weekend. They said, if you're not going to be here this weekend, we're letting you go. And I said, I'm telling you ahead of time that I'm not going to be here. Why aren't you going to be here? I'm doing a photo shoot for some rap group named Outcast. And he said, what? And I said, that's what I said. So we got their CD and listened to it on the way down, driving to Atlanta. This was right after the bombing, and it was pretty cool. But anyway, yet I digress. All right, so now, any questions about that idea about putting the effects that I would master with on a submaster versus a master, about pre-fader inserts versus post-fader inserts? All right, we good? Somebody's saying, I don't remember Pro Tools being this in-depth in 2006. We've come a long way, baby. I've got a great question. Somebody's asking, would I always use subgroups? It really depends on the amount of tracks. Like if I'm just songwriting and I've got 4 or 5 just basic tracks, I probably wouldn't. But as soon as I start getting into a handful of tracks, 4 or 5 tracks for one type of instrument, and so once I've got my my vocals and my delays and my verbs for my vocals, then I might start using some subgroups, because I don't feel like moving 3 faders if I can just get away with moving 1. And a lot of people use subgroups, so I try to make it a habit there for you. And so I've got my bed subs, vocal subs, and my vocal drum subs, all feeding my sub master, and my sub master feeding my master. So is everybody cool with that? So if I only had one vocal track, it depends. I mean, do you want to move the vocal and its reverb and its delay when you want to move it up and down? Or would you rather just move a vocal sub? And so it's, and remember that a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to hit pause for a second, you can do one time when you create a new session, right? Create a new session, get all your tracks up, do all your routing, and then save it as a template, right? See how I can save something as a template? And so now I've got all this, and I can name it. I can put it in a certain folder, right? And then check it out. So what I've done, and I know I'm getting off subject here, but when I create a project, when I start my one, I can go from a template and go ahead, and this has already got my live mic and my effects and all that loaded up, so I don't have to put my delay on my voice and all that kind of stuff every month. And then it automatically labels it that, and then I just fill in the artist and the song name, right? So that's a pretty neat way to work, and that way you can always you can work with your subs, but you don't have to create them every time that you work in a session if you start with a big old template. All right. So, all right, let's move on. Because we've done some really cool things. I'm going to do another save as, because they called us up and they said, Steve, can you set this up? They want to go on tour real quick. They want to take this on tour. And so I say, yep, we can do that. So let's prep to tour. All right. And I ask them about the schedule, and they say, we're going a couple different places. And I said, are you going to do any TV appearances? And they said, yeah. And I said, all right, cool. Are you going to do any outdoor venues? Yeah, cool. Are you going to have any overflow people? Yeah, yeah. Are you streaming anything? Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, cool. So I do this. Here's what I do. I'm going to now look at sends F through J. And I'm going to look at all my tracks. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to view my Nero mix so I can see everybody here. All right. So I get all my tracks here. All right. So what we're going to do is, except for Steve Live and that, I'm going to get everybody that I'm using. All right. And I first think, all right, on tour they're going to need monitors, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up so send J is for my monitors, right, up on stage or whatever, right? So I'm going to hold down Shift and Option, and I look in the back of my interface, and lines 3 and 4 are open. So I plug line 3 and 4 out. You see how everybody's going to 3 and 4, right? So now with these held, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Edit under Automation, and I'm going to say Copy to Send. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say take all of the current values and all of the automation for volume and panning and send it to send F. Okay. Now look, when I'm going to click Command right now, and look, all of my equal faders. Now, what I'm going to do on these, with them all still chosen, I'm going to now hold Shift and Option again. I'm going to make them all pre-fader. Because check it out. If it's pre-fader, now I can keep the front of house mix, but the lead singer wants more, right? So now when I pop that up, now I can send them more vocal without changing the front of house mix. How you like me now? Because see, if it was post-fader, it would follow whatever this fader was doing, right? And they always wanted more. So we've got that. So all of my monitors, or when I'm in the studio, all of my Q sends, right? Now, since those are going output 3 and 4, what I'm also going to do is get master 2 over here. So now we've got front of house, or that would be your control room master. And then we've got a monitor, or that would be your Q master. All right. And so now as we hit play, I need more, whatever. Oh, look at that. I'm getting CPU overloads. All right. So now I've got that. Well, now they say, what we're doing is we're also, we're playing this outdoor fair. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a cool room for people over 50 years old, right? And we're going to have a little tent here, so we want an overflow cool room. So here's what we do. Again, we take everybody, and I mean everybody, and I mean everybody. And I hold down Shift. Let's go Shift and Option, and I look on the back of my interface, and I say, you know what? I've got 5 and 6 open. So I go out 5 and 6. I do again. I'm going to copy that to my sends. And now you can see that all of that information, I want to send that to letter G now. I said to G. And then when you command click, you can see that their levels are there. Now the cool thing is we said this is like an overflow room or something, right? So we get our third master fader, or maybe I clicked on fourth accidentally. Let's click on 3. Okay, so you still came back, Master Fader 4. And look at that. It's already assigned to 5 and 6 automatically. So that's going that. We can name that overflow or cool room or whatever. And you know that they're just wanting to chill out. So they're wanting to talk and everything. So you just send them a nice little low mix. Right? I would do the same thing. Oh, by the way, and then with all of them as well. And my computer is lagging. Sorry about this. I need more RAM. I can't handle it anymore. But Scotty, it's using 16 gigs. I need more RAM. All right, so check it out. You also want those to be pre-fader. So are you getting the idea now that for effects and everything, I use post-fader? And you can check it out. You can command click there. Right? So I was using post fader for all my effects, but when I'm just using it to send to other places, I would use pre fader. Maybe I've got another insert going on, and somebody brought in another idea, and they said, hey, I can stream this. If you'll give me a feed, I'll stream it over Facebook Live. So I put everybody on 7, right? But they, you know what, we're going to, we want less bass and all that kind of stuff. So we say no problem. We copy everything that we've already done to the new mix. Right? And they tell us stuff like on the, you know, we definitely want to hear more vocal. You know, on that one, everybody's going to definitely be pre-fader still. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Okay, no. Oh, shift an option. Come on. Come on, everybody. Come on, everybody. There we go. Yeah, pre-fader for everybody. Sorry I didn't do it there either. So pre-fader for everybody there. My computer is like, Steve, you're working me so hard. I'm so slow at reacting. My goodness. I didn't mean to be so tough on you, computer. All right, so did I tell y'all the other day that I bought some new shoes? Yeah, here's my word of advice. Don't ever buy shoes from a drug dealer, because I think he laced them with something. I mean, I was tripping all day. Get it? Laced them. Tripping. Oh, my God. Oh, my dog. You know why the musician was arrested? He was in trouble. Oh, boy. All right, so, man, we did an overflow room. We did a stream room. We did monitors. We need to get that last master fader out. Da 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 da. That song's gonna be stuck in my head tonight. And that was our stream. And then they just popped it out over the internet. There we go. And then that's it. And then the drums are too loud, so we took out the drum. We just pulled the drum sub down a little bit. Everybody cool with that? So, differences of pre versus post fader when you're dealing with effects, or if you're sending something out, prepping for a live tour. So I'm going to hit save one last time. So let's go back and look at our document here. So for the automation in groups, vocal mixing, right? We got stems. I didn't put any background there. Some dynamic and time-based delays, right, on instrument parts as well as vocals, right? So we had 3 automation types. We've done some volume and some pan and some plugins. When you're doing that, please leave the automation playlist up so we can actually see it. And then we did some edit mix groups throughout the month, and we've done our subgroups tonight as well. Now, coming back on Thursday, like I said, first thing tonight, we are going to show you how to prepare this thing for delivery and get you rolling there and how we turn it in. So I want to ask my class, Gabriel, James F., James C., John SC, and John SE, Richard, Sergio, Shantae, Summer, Tyrone, Willie. How's everybody doing? You got any questions about this bad boy? I'm going to stick around here for a few minutes after our archive and play around a little bit, but let me know now if you got any questions, and then we'll do our thing. So it has been a wonderful night. I want to thank you all for coming by. You said that I should have the MIDI tracks. Yes. So when you are working with that, remember, we are expecting you to create everything on MIDI tracks, right? And then we tell you that, let's see, no, sorry, on week 2, here's where I say. We all want you to create everything with MIDI and virtual instrument tracks. And then if you want to, and you probably will, want to dump them down as audio. So that's what I was meaning there. So when you turn it in, we need to see, just like you see, that I've got not only my audio tracks for my kick, snare, and hat and open hat, but you also see my MIDI tracks, and that way I can get in and see how you were working and all that. See, if I look at that, I can then go and see some more detail about how you were working in the parts and, things and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, awesome. Great question. Glad you asked it. All right. Well, everybody, I thank you for being here. I'm going to stick around and take more questions and talk with my folks here. So, once again, thank you, Gabe, James, John, Richard, Sergio, Shantae, Summer, Tyrone, Willie. Actually, there was only 2 real James, and Johns. I just figured like I was repeating everybody else. So, thank you all so much for being here. As always, this is Steve Kane presenting for the Audio Workstations class. Peace out.